Appalachian Harvest is a food hub located in Southwest Virginia that provides regional herb and vegetable farmers with training, technical support, aggregation, and distribution services, connecting them to retail markets. We currently source produce from farmers in Virginia, Tennessee, West Virginia, Kentucky, and North Carolina. This webinar is made possible by Risk Management Agency 2018 Risk Management Education Partnership Program.
So I work for the Kentucky Center for Agriculture and Rural Development, otherwise known as KCARD. We actually are technical assistance provider that work one-on-one and in groups with farmers for business planning, marketing planning needs, accessing funding, and board trainings. If there's something that has to do with technical assistance for a farmer that is not helping you learn how to grow things, we generally do it. So, and that said, to us, it's a lot more than paper and spreadsheets. Business planning is an essential part of your farm, and one of my favorite quotes is, you cannot manage what you do not measure. So business planning is a good way to figure out what you want to manage and how you can measure that. So Adam, I think you have a poll. Speaking of, you cannot manage what you cannot measure, I think we have a poll tonight for everyone to take as we kind of get started. I think most people, when they think, yes.
And I'll go ahead and launch that poll. And I'll also mention that as we go through this evening's webinar, we do have questions and answers possible. So if you look to the bottom of your screen, you should see a little chat cloud. Click on that and you can ask questions. So I'll go ahead and launch the poll now. And we'll just ask all the attendees to go ahead and answer. We're asking, how do you keep records? You see the options there in a very particular order. You can probably pick up on that.
And this is actually one of the first things we ask people when we work one-on-one with them with business planning. The first question is,
third of the participants. We'll give everybody just a couple more seconds. Sorry to cut you off.
Okay. I was just going to say, one of the things that we run into frequently is some of the myths about business planning, which is that it's going to be really complicated. You're going to end up with a 40-page document, that you're going to make it, and then you're just going to sit there in the shoebox with your records, or next to the shoebox, or used as kitty litter. So it's something that for us, it's a living document.
Okay. So of the respondents of the poll, 100% of them said they use a spreadsheet for record keeping.
Wow, I'm so happy. I would be happy to have any of you as clients. I'm happy with if people want to do a business plan, because that shows that they're interested in moving forward with their business and they want to make sure they do it in a logical manner. Why do one? It makes you think about key elements of your business. A lot of times you kind of go through your day and you do things. You plant tomatoes, you harvest tomatoes, you feed calves, you harvest hay to use for, you cut hay, you bale hay, you store it to use for the winter, or you sell it. Business plan makes you take a step back and look at all those elements and see how they contribute to your bottom line and to your business goals. It creates a roadmap for future growth, and the hope is, as you can see in the graphic, that through business planning, the future growth will mean more income for your farm. It gives you a written document to review and modify each year. As I said, it's a living thing. It is not something that you do once and you never look at again. I have farmers that I have known for 8-9 years that I check in with on at least a yearly basis, just to say, hey, how's it going? We said we were going to try this last year, what worked, what didn't. And we may not rewrite the entire business plan, but we'll see kind of, did we follow the roadmap, and, what do we need to change going forward? What didn't work last year? It helps you assess and manage your risk. You may not realize until you do a business plan and take a close look at your financials and your marketing and your sales, or even your operations, where some of your risk lies. Are you relying really heavily on one market? Are you relying really heavily on one product? What happens if one of those things falls through? A business plan can help you look at that. And it assists in securing and keeping funding. We have many farmers that we work with that use business plans to apply for grants and loans. Funders want to know that you are going to take the money that you give them, whether it's a grant or a loan, and you're going to do something with it, and if that will lead to a more robust business and a more sustainable business. So the basic elements of a business plan we're going to go through tonight are the business description, the marketing plan. We kind of combine two elements because I am all for a streamlined business plan, a management and operations plan, and a financial plan. Just so you know, a lot of K-Card's business plans are between 7 and 15 pages when we work with clients. And we don't just take your general information and write a business plan, we work on it together. This isn't, we don't use a boilerplate. We have general questions we ask, but a business plan needs to be yours, and those elements need to be for your business, tailored to them. So it's a lot of work to do a business plan. It makes you think about it. You have to think about what a summary of your business is. What's your ownership structure? Are you an LLC? Are you running as a sole proprietorship? Have you not thought about it? Did you once file with the Secretary of State in your state to be an LLC, and you've since let that expire? Do you need that? Those are questions that come up in a business plan. How is your business structured, and who owns it? And a lot of people think that business plans are without kind of a soul. But there is a soul in a business plan. It's the history and background of your business. Why did you start it? What is your mission? Why do you have this business? Most farmers don't farm because they wanted a really lucrative profession. They farm because they love farming. And there's some aspect of it, whether it's feeding their community or working, getting to work in the dirt or mud, as it is lately. There's a reason they farm. Maybe it's sustainability, all of that. So the mission for your business needs to be part of your business plan. Goals. When people think about goals, your vision and your mission for your business should be separate from your goals. Your goals, we usually have short-term goals, which are less than 3 years, and long-term goals that are more than 3 years. And again, I want you to be able to measure them. It's just a general thing for goals. If you don't know what you're trying to achieve, it's going to be hard to know when you achieve it. So I did a couple of examples of both short-term and long-term goals. Kelly's Vegetable Farm, which is no real farm, a really real example, wants to increase their CSA sales by 30% over the next 2 years by adding a drop-off location. Another short-term goal could be Kelly's Vegetable Farm will add a wholesale buyer and have at least $5,000 of wholesale volume in 2020. These goals both have, a specific amount that they're going to increase the business by and a time that they will be completed by. A long-term goal could be increasing production capacity by 25% in 2025. Maybe they want to buy an additional farm, lease additional acreage, add a product line, add some value-added products. All of those can be long-term goals. So that's the business description. Actually, for me, is one of the easiest parts of a business plan to write because people generally want to tell you about their business. The harder part is pinning them down on specific goals. The marketing plan is where people can get a little bogged down because you start doing things that kind of look like this decision matrix, this little word puzzle over here. You start talking about market research and who are their customers and describe your products and services and who are your competitors. People don't like answering that sometimes. Market positioning, what does that even mean? If I send you a question, it's like, what's your market positioning? Most people don't email me back. So we don't ask that question that way. Pricing strategies, how do you set your prices? This may be something you've never thought about, like why am I pricing it this way? Distribution. If you take your vegetables off farm or even on farm, you have a distribution strategy. Promotion strategy. How are you promoting your farm and your products? And your sales forecast. Sales forecast can be separate and different than your goals. It depends on what your goals are, but sales forecasts need to be part of your marketing plan. So let's get into the market research and analysis. You know, this is actually probably one of the more interesting parts of the business plan for me, because it's always great to learn about trends in different types of products. For example, I was recently speaking to someone about maple syrup, and we talked about how maple syrup is experiencing a resurgence as people want a less processed form of sugar. And that's a trend that's affecting their market. Another thing that would be affecting their market is the local food trend. Maybe a specific type of maple syrup. They want darker maple or lighter maple. A trend that affects your business can also be food safety. People's perceptions of food safety very much affect local farms. And to understand your market, you're going to understand the demographics, both that you're selling to currently and that you're trying to reach. Any recent developments in your market, maybe you've had a new farmer's market open, maybe you've had a new restaurant open, a new food hub. The university near you has changed their local food buying policies. All of that can affect your market analysis and your customer feedback. We'll get into who your customers are in a moment, but listening to your customers is probably one of the most valuable things you can do. I have had many people during this part say, well, all I really, if I can just get the customer to understand why they should buy this, there can be a little of that, but in the end, you have to meet the customer's needs. So where do you get market research analysis information? In Kentucky, especially if you're doing vegetables or another specialty crop, I would highly recommend the Center for Crop Diversification. You can use that in other states as well. Those resources are on the internet and free. That's through University of Kentucky. So University and Extension. Industry publications. You can look at anything from the Food Marketing Institute to, Meeting Place, which is a beef and pork manufacturing research or publication, to, there's organic publications, there's vegetable publications. And then the way that I really encourage, especially if you're going to your local market, if you're entering your local market or expanding, is to visit stores and markets. If you wanted to expand into Knoxville, I would highly recommend you visit the Knoxville Farmers Market and also go to the Three Rivers Food Co-op in Knoxville. You're going to get a lot of information there, what's on the shelves, what's not on the shelves, what the prices are. You can have an idea of who your customers could be at a farmer's market or a food co-op by seeing who's shopping there. Now it's a little bit of profiling your customer, just trying to figure out who are you marketing to. So who are your customers? People who are an existing farm have an existing customer base. A lot of times I ask people like, okay, so who buys your stuff? Maybe like people at the farmer's market. It's more specific than that. Is it people with young families? Is it empty nesters? Is it people who have certain outlook on life? Is there a need? Do they come to the farmer's market or purchase from your CSA or purchase local food because they want to feel connected to their local economy? Is your customer a wholesale buyer, and the need that you are fulfilling is having quality, consistent quality in a timely manner, and that is the need they need fulfilled. So you could actually have both types of customers, and you describe both of those in your business plan. If you're looking at your individual customers and your wholesale customers, look at their ability to purchase. Do they have excess income to spend a little more at the farmer's market? Is this your target group should? And their willingness to purchase. Some people have excess income, but if you're not fulfilling that need, they aren't going to purchase from you. As we discussed, both retail and wholesale customers, your CSA customer, your farmer's market customer, those are both what I would call direct sales. Then you have something like a food hub, like Appalachian Harvest, that would be a wholesale customer. When you're looking at these, both of those customers have very different needs. And then I have a lot of farmers that sell to what I consider intermediate customers, which are restaurants, schools, other institutions, maybe a local grocery store. Those are your retail and wholesale customers. I've had the best business plans that I have seen. And actually, the farmer sat down and wrote out a section that went through his primary target customer that was a wholesale customer, and his secondary target customer that was a individual retail customer at the farmer's market. And he went through each of their needs and what they wanted. And it really, not only was it neat to see written out, it actually gave him a great plan moving forward, and it worked for him because after that he had a specific approach to each type of customer, and he revisited it a few times over the last few years, and we've tweaked a little, and we've tweaked how we market to reach those customers. Looking at his materials. So key demographics, we talked a little bit. Is there an age range? Is there a specific profession that you see people more interested in, or type of profession? Is there an educational level? Is there an amount of, is there an income level that you see people purchase from you more often? It doesn't mean that every customer has to fit that bill, but you start looking and you will see some generalizations, usually within your customer base. All of this gets to knowing your customers. What do they value? Why do they buy from you? People at the farmer's market often want to talk to you. They want that sense of community. They want that connection to where their food comes from. And how do they make decisions? Why did they decide to buy what they bought from you? And why did they decide to buy from you and not the booth next to you? So think about those things as you're looking at your customer section So for example, if you're thinking about people making decisions and it's a young family, they make a lot of decisions about thinking about the health of their children, things that they can prepare easily. Those are things that will factor into their decision making because they have got kids, they may be short on time, but they still want to provide healthy food. So how do they make decisions? And you can even facilitate helping them make decisions easily by showing them, giving them ideas of how to prepare things. And that's a way to get to sell to that customer. And this is probably something you all already know and already do, but really strategically thinking about how you use those tools and what are other tools you can access is not a bad practice to do about once a year. Products and services. People hate writing this section. It's not the most fun part because it's where you go through everything you offer and you know what you have. But if you're trying to get a grant or a loan, you need to explain to the funder what your product is, why it's great. Is it local? Is it frozen so it has greater shelf stability? Is it grass-fed or grain-fed? Maybe it's no antibiotics or steroids. Maybe it's organic. There's all sorts of ways to differentiate what you're doing. Product differentiation is a big word, but all it means is what label can you put on it that makes it special to make someone decide to buy your product? And you're going to describe that a little bit in this section. Benefits offered. How does the customer benefit from the product? And that gets back to what I've been saying. Why are they there? Why are they buying your product? Is it because they really believe in grass-fed beef? They love the taste. They love the idea of grass-fed. They don't want cattle eating grain. Hey, that's your customer. At the same time, I had someone who did all grass-fed beef who got customer feedback that some of them would really like some grain-finished cattle. And so she actually worked on that as part of her line and worked with other farmers. So, they were looking for a taste that they didn't get through. They didn't like the grass-fed as much as they did the grain-fed. Other people have a different preference. So what is the benefit to them? They want the taste. Do they want the grass-fed? Do they want local? That feeling of community? Healthy? These are all things that customers can be looking for. Your key competitors. With my farmers market clients, this is probably their least favorite part because we'll say, who's your key competitor? And they're like, well, so-and-so also sells produce, but we're not competitors, we're friends. You're selling produce in the same market, they're your competitor. You can be friends with your competitors. So identify them, describe what they offer, where are they located, what is their reputation. They probably have something special about them that, maybe their reputation is they offer produce at lower prices. You may offer the idea, maybe talking about how it's a family farm and selling that idea and still have produce at, good prices. And that gets to the value proposition or market positioning. What are you offering to your customer? What's your value? Is it the idea of a family farm? Is it a local farm? Is it a farm that's very sustainable? Is it the quality of the produce? Is it organic? Is it grass-fed? Any of those attributes. What's your value? And a lot of times the value proposition will be tied into the story of your farm. And that gives you the competitive advantage, why customers should buy from you instead of the person sitting in that booth next to you. If it's a wholesale customer, should they buy from you because you have experience? As part of your value proposition, you've got 20 years experience growing vegetables, and you're going to be able to fulfill their needs in a consistent and quality, with a consistent and quality product. Is that why they should buy from you? Your reputation in the marketplace. This is an interesting one. People get very concerned about this one. I will have to say that you have to be careful what you say about yourself. I had a new farmer a couple of years ago that put up a website that they were an organic farm, highly known for their quality products and produce. And turns out they hadn't gotten their organic certification yet, and it was their first year farming. So saying that you are known for something, you have to be careful with that. You don't want to mislead customers. That will have the exact opposite effect of what you're going for in building brand and building trust. Pricing. Most of my farmers don't think about a lot when they set prices. They try to think without necessarily measuring how much they need to get out of this bushel of green beans or this 2 pounds of sausage. So what we'd like for them to look at, and what we look at when we go through financials, is the cost of production, the cost of goods. How much does it actually cost you to make 2 pounds of sausage? How much does it cost you to have, a couple of pounds of potatoes? So you have to consider that when you set your price. If you don't, you can very easily start losing money. The other thing you have to consider is customer values and their willingness and ability to pay. Like if it costs you $10 to produce 2 pounds of sausage, and so you're going to charge $12 so you can make $2, your customers may not be willing to pay $12 for 2 pounds of sausage. Maybe they're only willing to pay $9, in which case you shouldn't be selling sausage, or you need to look at how to make your operation more financially efficient. Or you find a market where customers are willing to pay $12 for sausage. And then you look at your competition. This is how most people initially set their prices when they start selling farm products. They look at how much the person next to them is selling tomatoes. The person next to them is selling tomatoes for $1 a pound. They sell them for $1 a pound. If it's $3 a pound, they sell them for $3, or maybe just under or just below. But most people, looking at your competition, if you're too far above or too far below, you will see your sales impacted, either positively or negatively. Pricing strategy. So how do you decide? Most people do kind of a mix. They want it to be competitive with their people they're selling against. They want it to be a kind of normal price in the marketplace. I've actually seen people with value-added products have success, selling well above, putting themselves in the premier category of how much it costs, because if you price it a little higher, people see more value in it. You don't want to price your pickles at the same price as a supermarket, because one, you probably won't make money on pickles, and two, people, they're like, well, what could be special about them? So cost base, that's based on your cost of production. How much does it cost you? We're going to do a 30% markup. Here we go. This is how we're going to sell. Willingness to pay. How much do you think people are willing to pay for it? I once had someone who ran an agritourism operation that gave me the best example of measuring willingness to pay, and I'm going to share it with you. she said, if someone walks up to the counter and you tell them it'll cost $20 to enter, and they turn around and walk out, then $20 was too much. And if someone walks up to the counter and you tell them it'll be $20 to enter, and they just hand over their credit card and they never even blink, then you haven't charged them enough. If someone walks up to the counter and you tell them it's $20 and they look at you for a second and then give you their money anyway, you're probably charging about the right amount. So you have to be what they're willing to pay. And you want to make sure it's not too far below what they're willing to pay. Volume. A lot of people moving into the wholesale or other intermediate markets struggle with how to price higher volumes of their products, mostly because they don't know how much it costs them to produce, you know, a 25-pound box of tomatoes. And if you don't know how much it costs you to produce it, you don't know how much you can mark it down by in order to move through a higher volume channel. The other thing, people think like, oh, if I sell more, even if I sell at a lower price, I've sold more. Well, you could be losing money. And we don't want that. We want farms to make money. That's the whole reason I do my job. I want farms to make money and continue to exist, and there to be new farms. Distribution. So this is something that gets overlooked by new farmers. How are you going to get your products to your consumers? One of the key things that we've noticed is that people don't often think about how they're physically going to get their product to the farmer's market, because you can't just toss it in the bed of your truck and be food safe. That does not work. You know, if you're going to go to if you're going to be dropping off CSA shares at several locations, are you going to do it yourself? Are you going to get someone to help you? You know, there's third-party transportation. In Central Kentucky for a while, we had a group that was, you could just pay them to deliver your product, and it was really nice. You know, what are requirements for distribution? You know, what are requirements if you're transporting milk? Or if you, are there legal requirements to do with that? Even if it's a finished product, are there packaging requirements? You know, you've got to keep things cool if they need to be cool. You have to keep things clean. And if you're going to wholesale marketing channels like grocery, restaurants, institutions, you're going to need to know what kind of packaging they need, and you're going to have to be able to get that, and when they need it. You know, distribution isn't just how you get it there, but when you get it there. For direct marketing channels like farmers markets or on-farm store, an on-farm store, you still have a distribution strategy. Your strategy is to get people to come pick it up. You're distributing it from your farm. And so you have to think about it that way. We have more and more farms now that are doing internet sales. And, you know, I have a farm that distributes a lot of cheese via the Ship It, and they figured out a way to ship it, and people will pay for it to be shipped, and it stays cool, and they have a shipper that works with them, and that's actually been a really good way for them to grow their market. Promotion strategies. You know, people often put promotion strategies and sales strategies together. I just divorced the sales strategies from this, specifically because I want you to develop a way to promote your farm. And who are your target customers? So I've talked a little bit about, you know, your existing customer base. You know, if you have new target customers like wholesale customers, or maybe new CSA customers, or new farmers market, or new region, you know, you've got to base it on your customers, your goals, and how much you want to sell. Everybody, I'm assuming, now knows that social media and websites are a great way to promote your products, especially if you're direct marketing at a farmer's market or CSA. It is very challenging to establish yourself as a legitimate farm without actually a Facebook page. Facebook pages are probably more viewed than websites now. We have a lot of farms that use websites for CSA signups, weekly updates. We have farms that have online stores to do drop-offs or do order ahead things for farmers markets. But that social media presence, and it gives people a way to engage with your farm, to see your story in a very real way. And they value that. They want that connection if you're direct marketing. You are selling your story as well as your product on social media. Radio and print advertising, I have serious conversations with people now if they want to spend a lot of money through this venue, because we are seeing it reach fewer and fewer customers. It can be part of an effective marketing strategy, but you have to know who you're targeting. Signs, look, you need signage for, if you're going to have an on-farm store, you need signage, and it needs to be more than the size of an 8x12 sheet of paper. You need signs for your farmers market. You know, we actually help farmers markets with business planning, and a lack of signage is a consistent problem we see. You can have events as a promotion strategy. Many of the farms that I work with will hold an on-farm dinner or kind of a farm field day a couple of times a year, just to get people out on the farm, kind of see what they're about. You can also go to events and have tables. We have lots of farms that go to food shows and other things and set up, they try to be invited and they go there. And actually, that can be a great way to get a buyer that isn't an individual customer. If you're looking for a wholesale buyer, getting invited to something like Kentucky Kroger's food show, that's a way to find a buyer. And then printed materials. I don't encourage farms to print out tons of brochures, but you should have a printed material, at least a card or a rack card, which is, you know, kind of about a 3 or 4 by 7 printed card that is something they can take home with them. Usually it's going to have a way to connect. You know, here's some pictures, very few words, and a way to connect with you afterwards through social media, email, telephone numbers. But printed materials are still important, and it's important to have them. It also helps a lot to have those when you're working with wholesale buyers, because it gives them a way to catch back up with you and to know, who they've talked to. So looking at your marketing plan, we've gone over a lot of stuff. We've gone over customers, we've gone over promotional strategies, we've gone over market and industry trends, and I have completely bored everyone to death with the marketing portion of a business plan. But it's really important, and I actually find it really fun to think about who you're trying to sell to and how you're going to sell to them. So after doing all that, you need to figure out how you're going to decide that your marketing plan worked. Are you going to look at your number of customers? That can be wholesale customers, that can be individual customers. Your number of sales, how many sales total did you have? How many transactions do you have each week at a farmer's market? Do you have 50 transactions? And then how much are each of those transactions worth? Are they worth $2 or $10? One way to increase your sales is to increase the amount of sales per transactions. And there are strategies you can do to do that. Do you have items that people will pick up once they're in your booth? Do you make sure you offer a few higher ticket items that more people will buy, just to increase the average amount of your transaction each month, every time someone buys something? A sales forecast. You want to try to think about how much you are going to sell of your different products. Not just, I want to sell $20,000 of vegetables. You have your sales forecast broken down by product line. I want to sell this many tomatoes. I'm going to sell this many cucumbers. I'm going to sell, this many pounds of ground beef. I'm going to sell this many pounds of steak. Look at that for the next 3 to 5 years. Another way to look at your sales forecast, and we get this a lot, is to look at how much you're selling through which channel, how much you're going to sell at a farmer's market, how many CSA shares. And this feeds into trying to do your financial projections. Your farmer's market CSA shares, you're going to sell to wholesale, you're going to sell to restaurants. Break all of that down, and that needs to be part You can use a few different ways of doing a sales forecast. It has to be something that works for you and it makes sense for measuring your business success as part of your marketing strategy. Management plan. Like, I know a lot of us are one person or two person and a couple of kids shows on farms, okay? This is not a 250 employee farm. I'm guessing that most of you on this webinar are not there. And if you are, congratulations. I'm so glad you've got that many employees and you can manage them. But you still have a management plan. Who are the owners of your farm? We're going to talk again about the business structure. What's the organizational chart? I put a sample organizational chart. This is just very simple, and this is actually a real organizational chart from a couple of different farms I've worked with. Have had ones that look just like this. They have the farm owner, they have seasonal production labor, they have someone that they hire throughout the season a few times to help them do deliveries to wholesale buyers. And then they have someone that is a contractor that is a sales rep. And all of those are managed by the owner of the farm. But just by having one employee or person you work with, there is an organizational chart. Who makes decisions? If you and your partner, husband, wife, kids, best friend, whoever are farming together, who is responsible for what? That's part of your organizational chart. That's part of your management plan. Look at your key personnel. If you're the owner of the farm, you are a key person. Describe your experience. Describe what you do. What are you responsible for? What do you do on a daily basis? These are all very important, understanding your key personnel. Maybe you have seasonal production labor. You just hire, we tend to hire high school kids to go pick blueberries, whatever it is. You need to describe, how you acquire that labor, salaries and benefits. I know a lot of people don't have it on there, but some of you will. Some of you are thinking about, how do I pay people? How much do I pay people? Do I offer them benefits? A lot of times, just looking at that question on the business plan before you ever hire your first employee, you need to know what kind of salary and benefits you want to offer them. There are other things you need to know before you hire your first employee, but that's one of the things. Training, that's for you. Are you offering employees training, or are you attending trainings to help you better manage your farm? Whether that's listening to a business planning webinar on a Tuesday night, or do you go to professional conferences to learn more about your fruits and vegetables, or do you go to cattlemen's meetings when they have training, and evaluations? How do you evaluate how people are doing their job? How do you evaluate how you don't have to write this. If you're doing a very simple, streamlined business plan, you might not answer all these questions. But thinking about them, I think thinking about some of these questions and some of the marketing things is more valuable than writing it on paper. I have clients that we never get to a completed business plan, but we get sections of it and we challenge a lot of what they assumed to be true about their customers or about how they're going to manage their business. One key part of the management plan that we have had many farmers do that isn't on this slide is how they manage themselves. How much can you reasonably do in a day, in a season, in a week, in a year? Are you going to manage your Facebook, deliver to 6 different places, still do all your harvesting and weeding on your farm, and sleep and eat and be able to please your customers? The answer for a lot of people is no once they get to a certain point. So we've actually had farmers, just sit down and work out how many hours they're going to spend each week. We might not put it in the business plan, but it's a valuable tool that we use when we're doing business planning so that we know that they're not taking on too much and that could negatively impact their business. Operations plan. I've had a lot of instances in the last few years, especially in Eastern Kentucky, of people looking for additional land and they want to lease the land. I have one farmer who is this year trying for the 3rd time to lease land. because the first 2 times he did not get a lease agreement. About between February and March, the previous 2 years, both landowners fell through on him. So you want to have a lease agreement that spells out what you are allowed to do on the land, how much land you're going to be using, the term, how long the lease lasts, if there's any cost. And when you're talking about your operations plan, do you own or lease? How much acreage? A lot of farms have a mixture of owning property and leasing property. As much as I want to say that a handshake will work for you in a lease, I have seen too many farmers burned by this to recommend the handshake method of securing your land. So that's part of your operations plan is, and facility description is how much land do you own, how much do you lease, how are you guaranteed that you're going to get to keep farming that and for how long. Your facility description, do you have high tunnels, barns, washing and packing facilities? Do you have a shed that, you store your tools in? Do you have a tool shed? Describe those things. Those things are important. They are part of your farm. You will actually put a value to those things in the financial plan. Equipment, tractors, implements, any specialized equipment. So I consider equipment, people will put equipment and supplies together. Equipment should be anything that you were able to use year after year. Your tractor is a piece of equipment. A shovel is a piece of equipment. Now, I don't want you to list every shovel you have because the value is generally negligible. It's a piece of equipment. The easiest way to think about pieces of equipment is stuff that I don't have to buy every year. In the business plan, you want to list the major ones that you have. If you have a skid steer, that's a piece of equipment you're using. I would consider hoses for, sap collection. The sap season just recently started. Maple season just recently started. Hoses are a supply for me because they don't last more than a few years generally. Some farmers can make them last longer, and we would consider them equipment. So you do get into kind of a gray area on that. And it really depends on the value and how long you use it. Your operation plan will include your production process. What type of production? Are you doing permaculture, organic? Are you trying to do sustainable? Are you producing in a high tunnel? Are you producing on plasticulture? Are you grass-fed? Are you grain-finished? Are you a cow-calf operation? You don't have to go over every detail of your production, but if you're doing a business plan, and especially if you're looking to get funding, whether it's a loan or a grant, you need to put in there how you do what you do. It does not have to be a day-by-day breakdown, but it needs to be a general description of your processes. Key regulations. If you're making a value-added product, do you need a commercial kitchen? Do you need to have your product nutritionally tested? Do you need to be GAP audited so you can sell to a new buyer? Have you reached, I put FSMA on there if you're not familiar, that's the Food Safety Modernization Act. At what point in your sales will FSMA impact you? Those are all questions that you need to consider when you're making your business plan for today and planning for the future of your business. And that's something you need to spell out in your business plan. Once we reach, X number of sales, we're going to have to think about how we're going to have to look at the FSMA regulations that come into play. And this is our strategy to work with those. So, financial plan. This is everyone's favorite. This is where everyone groans as I ask them questions on the phone or in person. We do a lot of in person across the dining room table. And I start asking pesky questions, like, how much is it going to start to cost this? Cost to start this. Have you considered how much it's going to cost to get containers to take your produce to farmers market? How much is it going to cost to get jars to put your honey in? How much are labels going to cost? I can get very picky because I don't want you putting more money into the business than what you're going to get out of it. I want to see what your return on investment is going to be when you can start making up for what you've invested. And we want to see farm businesses do that. It's very important. if you're making a new business, how do you plan to fund it? You know, I've had people do crowdfunding. I've had people take out loans. I've new business, it's a little harder to do capitalization. Maybe or capitalization strategies that includes grants. Maybe you're expanding your business. A lot of people will use grants and loans to expand their business, and that's a capitalization strategy. Capitalization strategy just means, how are you getting money to put into your business? What's your plan? Are you investing it? Have you saved up money and you're just going to bootstrap it? Some of the most successful farmers I know have just bootstrapped it. And it makes them think about every decision and everything they buy. And they've gotten very good at using resources, both physical resources and resources from their extension agent to someone willing to assist with business planning. You know, so your capitalization strategy, it can all come from you, it can come from outside sources, but you need to write it down. Inventory management, that's part of your financial plan. Because you might not sell all your inventory at the end of the year, and you need to know how much you have on hand in order to know how much you can sell and how much you're going to have. Inventory management also includes, you can be part of your operations and management plan, how you actually keep track of everything. Accounting system, we asked this before. I'm so happy you all are using spreadsheets. I hope that you're using spreadsheets every time you put something in there. We actually have several farmers using Google Sheets because they can use it on their phone and put something in there every single time, and it's free. Insurance. I'm truly scared by the number of farmers that sell a food product without having some liability insurance to cover that, because if something happened, they could lose their farm. We're going to separate this out from crop insurance. You know, crop insurance can actually help if you have had a loss on your farm. I don't mean you lost a person. I mean you lost crops, or you lost livestock, or you lost forage, you lost hay. So crop insurance can help manage that risk. And one of the things when you're keeping these records and you're doing your financial plan, that can help you understand when it makes sense for you to pay for crop insurance, and what type of crop insurance you need, and which of your products you need to insure. And we're going to be doing a follow-up webinar to this in 2 weeks that goes over the different types of crop insurance that are available, that might be applicable to small farmers, mid-sized farmers, and generally really farmers in Appalachia. Just kind of more diversified, probably not soybeans and corn and wheat. So looking at people who are doing vegetable production beyond just NAP through FSA. So looking at how to use crop insurance to help manage risk. Risk management is part of your financial plan, because you start looking at, as I mentioned before, you know, what products are making me the most money, what products am I at risk of not making money on, what products do I have very little margin, you know, if something goes wrong, I'm going to have to lose this product. And am I too dependent on one buyer, one crop, any of that, and start diversifying your operation. Financial projections. This is the meat and potatoes of why we ask lots of questions like, what were your sales? How much should it cost you to, you know, grow an acre of green beans? So we can try our very best to predict the future and do 3-year income statements, a 3-year cash flow, and a 3-year balance sheet. That's simple, right? Everyone knows exactly what I mean when I say income statement, cash flow, and balance sheet. No? Well, that's kind of normal. A balance sheet, actually, I'm going to show you something really quick, so be patient. I am going to stop sharing my screen and let you see an income statement so that you get a better idea of me just giving a couple of examples of bullet points, because I don't think bullet points get things across all the time. So this is a sample, just 1-year income statement or profit and loss statement. And it's exactly what it sounds like. It tells here's the money you made. Here's your profit, and then here's your expenses. I'd like to not think of them as a loss. It does tell you whether you made a profit or had a loss. So I kind of set this one up very simply. You know, So let's say you had, $7,500 in farmers market sales. Oh, we almost had 75,000. Yeah, let's have 75,000. I'm feeling very optimistic today. And you had an additional $20,000. Okay, let's just not get that optimistic. Let's do $20,000 in farmers market sales. And you had $5,000 in wholesale. You say, okay, so I've had $25,000 in sales. I'm doing really good. And you come down here and you're like, okay, well, I also had to pay for seeds for all of the things that I sold. So, that cost me right at well, we'll do $1,000. You got some organic heirloom seeds that were specially made for high tunnel. Maybe you had, some soil amendments. So that was $750. See this cost of goods sold right here? These are costs that directly relate to how much you produced in each thing. So your seeds, your fertilizer, feeding your cattle. I mean, that is a really important part. You cannot raise cattle without feeding them something. And maybe you need to fertilize your forage. You need to improve your pasture. That is a little different, but you probably have yearly cost on keeping your pastures where you can do grass fed. And then another cost directly related to what you're selling is its packaging. So packaging and label costs. Maybe you had, $1,400 in packaging and labeling cost. All right, so it cost you $9,000, the cost of the goods that you sold. And if you wanted to, in a more perfect world where I wasn't trying to simplify this, at the farmer's market, you could divide out, how much vegetables versus how much meat. And so you could see like how much, you can get very nitty gritty with this and be like, okay, broccoli's not making me money because I'm having to pay for transplants. But if I grew them from seed, would I be able to make money? Because I can sell it for this much. That, we get to that detail with people. So that's your COGS, your cost of goods sold, that's your COGS, and then operating expenses. So this is things that don't directly grow a product. Your vehicle cost, your fuel cost for your tractor, your insurance, advertising, farmers market fees. Apparently you have a lot of fuel. I was actually thinking heating, like if you're having to heat a greenhouse. If you have an accountant, any repairs and maintenance that you just kind of have on an annual basis, your phone, utilities, and all of that, if you put things in there, so you'd have your operating expenses and your cost of goods sold are both going to come out of your income. So that's your short and sweet of a profit and loss or income statement. So I'm going to go back to the presentation real quick. I just wanted to demonstrate that because it's hard to explain that without showing you. So we want to see your sales. We want to see how much it cost you how much did it cost you to sell that stuff, and then all the costs that go along that aren't actually growing something. And I have got to figure out how to speak. All right. Share this again. Okay. All right, well, almost done. I know that I'm about to hit an hour. So a balance sheet, unlike an income statement, just shows what you own and what you owe. It's a specific point in time. An income statement, you can project over years. It'll show, a lot of times, we do them in 1 year increments. You could do them in a 1 month increment if you wanted. But an income statement will show a 1 year increment. A balance sheet, a lot of balance sheets are only true on the date that you do them. So it will show, I have this much value in the land I own, and here's what I own. But I still owe, I have $100,000 of value in my land, but I still owe 60 on it. I have this much equipment, as we talked about earlier, but I also owe this for the new tiller that I had to buy last year. So your balance sheet will show all of your investment in your farm and all the things you still owe on your farm, and those things should balance out actually to zero. That's a really interesting concept because it'll show every dollar you've put into your farm to that point in time and every dollar that you owe. So and it will also show any assets, any inventory you haven't sold. So if you have some sausage in the freezer, those should be on your balance sheet. cash flow statement. When we do business plans, I like to do, especially for startups, I like to do them on a monthly basis. What this is this is based on January 1st, 2019, Kelly's Vegetable Farm had $5,000 in the bank. Then they bought seeds in January and February. So you would see that cost come out of their cash. And then they had to buy some soil. They had to buy some fertilizer and some drip tape and a few other things in like March and April. And you'll start seeing in the cash flow, you would see that 5,000 is now 4,000, is now 3,000. And you'll see that you don't start seeing a positive cash flow until they start selling things in May and June. And so you can help a farmer know if they're going to experience a really lean time in April or March or May. And so that's why the cash flow statement is so important. It's all the cash coming in and all the cash going out, and doing it monthly that first year so people know what to expect. I mean, it's not perfect. You can have surprises, but if you plan for when the lean time will be, or when the time of, and know the next year, you know, okay, we need to put so much of this money back because this is how much money we're going to need to make it to June. You know, especially as people are considering, like, when do I start paying myself out of my business? Having the cash flow handy, it's good to know. So, Adam, that I will tell you all, you are going to get tomorrow, or after this, Adam is going to send out K-Card's business plan development guide. I do not believe, and K-Card does not believe in 40-page guides. So this one is 3 pages. It goes over the high points of everything I've just discussed in 3 pages. It's laid out with questions to ask yourself. If you're wondering if that question pertains to you, feel free to ask. Email me. Email someone at K-Card, call us. We'll try to help you work on it. We can do direct technical assistance to people located in the state of Kentucky, but this guide can be used by anyone. And if you're really enjoying business planning, you want to go very, very in-depth, I highly recommend Southern SARE's Building a Sustainable Business. It's a very long book, but if you wanted to work up really hard on your target customers or look at your different markets, there are sections in there that are great for that. I've had a few farmers work all the way through it. It is 200 pages, so kudos to them, but I do not recommend it for a startup farmer. I think you can look at it, get some ideas, think about, like, this is stuff I haven't thought about, and those are the resources that I would recommend starting with. And then also, SBDCs in many states will help farmers to some extent. And extension agents should hopefully have some business planning resources. Adam, do we have questions?
As of this point, we do not have any questions that have come in, but we'll go ahead and give everybody a chance to do that. Again, if you see the chat bubble down at the bottom of your screen, you're welcome to type a question in there. We'll give everybody just a minute to do that. Marissa, I'll go ahead and ask a question. Mm-hmm. What would be kind of maybe the first step that someone considering becoming a grower should do? Is there, maybe one thing they should start with and then go from there?
So we actually have people call K-Card and ask, what should I grow? I am not the person to answer that question. If I were a beginning grower, I think I would consider why I want to grow and think about what are the things that fit that bill. And I would go, so we have people, for example, we've had people, let's say you're looking at making cheese. The first thing that I would do is go to places where cheese is sold that is local cheese and see what they're selling, how much they're selling it for. And I would actually talk to other people making cheese. And then if you're going to grow produce, I would talk to your extension agent or someone to get your soil tested and see what your land is capable of. If you don't have land, which is the situation many, many times, most of the time actually, then I would recommend thinking about what you want to grow and what there's a market for, and looking at those two things. Where those things marry up, that's where you build your business. Like, here's what I want to grow. My husband and I had this pipe dream of one day we're going to raise alpacas for fiber. And those of you who know the business know that this is very hard to make money at. This is why it's a pipe dream. The problem is, alpacas are cute. Getting people to buy alpaca fiber and getting it processed. There might be a market for alpaca fiber, but where am I going to get it processed? Well, there's only one place in the state of Kentucky I can send it. And they need this huge volume that I won't be able to produce until I have 200 alpacas. I'm making this up, but, so the first step is to look at what you want to produce and the market for it and the prices of those markets, and then start working from there. Like, use something like the Center for Crop Diversification. They will have, how much it should cost you per acre to grow a crop.
Okay.
They'll have those resources. If you're going to do cattle, reach out to your local cattle organization. They will be able to help you. The best thing you can do is talk to other people. I will tell you that some of us are dream crushers. And we will play devil's advocate, but it's the idea of making your business better. We don't want to see you sink $40,000 of your retirement into something that isn't going to work. We want to see you put money towards something that will work.
Okay. And I'll say this, one thing I noticed in the presentation, how many of the different elements to some extent have some comparative elements, whether you're doing organic certification or GAP certification, in that you have to take an overview, you have to understand what's happening on your operation, you need to have some sort of outline. So I could see someone who is already certified organic or certified GAP having certain elements of this process already in place.
They are going to have a lot of elements of this process in place. I think the thing that we've seen, especially with farms that are certified organic or GAP certified, GAP audited, I think the thing that probably has most helped them with is thinking about where else they're going to market and their prices, because they've got a lot of the other stuff lined out. And we've seen good and bad choices out of that, actually.
Okay.
But if you can keep that level of record, a business plan is simple in comparison, to be honest with you. Does that make sense? Is that kind of what you're asking? Like, if you can keep that level of records, this is not so bad. This will not be painful for you at all.
Well, and that's it. To a certain extent, I'm thinking there's a lot of producers that are probably further down this path than they realize, because they do have other things they've done that would fall into place with an analysis like this.
Yeah, a lot of it is sitting down and making the time to answer the question. That's it. The people who I see do best with farms are not people. There's two ways to consider whether you should do something. You can lay awake at night every night and just wonder if you should do something. Those tend to be not as successful because it delays their decision making, and they haven't analyzed whether or not they should do it. The other way is to gather all the information you can. You don't want to get stuck in an information gathering loop. I've seen people get stuck, actually, and this is something I didn't think about. I've seen people get stuck in the business planning loop, where they get so concerned with gathering information for the business plan that they experience a failure to launch or a failure to change or expand. So business planning, like, I hope that doing a business plan takes you less than 2 months. And if you work with us, that's my goal. There are some operations that, because of the complexity of it or the timing of the business plan, if we start your business plan in July, you might be a little too busy to answer email questions and phone calls and have in-person meetings. So that might take longer than 2 months. But yeah, people are probably further along this path. I think the most valuable part of business planning is not just the plan that you get. I think there's one, seeing the financials, and two, taking the time to critically think about your business once a year. That's well more valuable than the written business plan.
Okay. Well, we have not had any questions come in, so obviously you did an excellent job.
Or I talked so quickly that they've all fallen asleep to the incessant hum. So
maybe they're all perusing the resources. But let me say thank you for presenting this evening. We very much appreciate it. And we will be sending out a follow-up email that will have a link to an evaluation. It's going to be a SurveyMonkey, so we ask that you complete that. We need that to be able to refer back to our funders, kind of sort of indicating what we did wasn't successful, but also it gives you the opportunity to give us any suggestions you might have. And so this funding opportunity that we're a part of is actually a 2-year project. So if there's more specific things with business planning that you'd like to see done in depth, that would be a place to let us know that. And so next year we may be able to offer kind of 201 instead of 101 on some of these topics. So
Yeah, and
I'm expecting that.
I do want to leave everyone, the last slide is our contact information for the Kentucky Center for Ag and Rural Development, both my personal information and then also our general line. So if you have a specific question for me, feel free to reach out. And if you're just interested in starting business planning, you can reach out to myself or the general. We will pair you with the best person to work with your type of business. So.
Well, I'll just thank the attendees for attending, and please reach out to either myself or to Marissa if you have more questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Adam.